Welcome back. So the 2024 holiday season has seen a troubling rise in gender-based violence and intimate partner violence across the country, with women and children bearing the brunt. According to the Executive Director of the Callas Foundation, Caroline Peters, financial stress, heightened emotions and increased alcohol consumption fueled these incidents. Peters now joins us for this conversation. Caroline, a very good morning to you and a happy new year to you as well. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Quite distressing that we have some of these cases, especially during the festive season. And one of those that I guess for a lot of people that still stands out is what happened in KwaZulu-Natal, where a man allegedly murdered his ex-fiancée and then filmed all of that and posted it on Facebook. So the heinousness of the crime, but then there's also this level of callousness that you couldn't be bothered actually. Let's just share it with the people as they please. I find it interesting looking at some of the reasons that you have found behind some of these incidents that we are seeing.
Yes, good morning to you and good morning to the viewers and a happy new year. And I really want to say happy and blessed new year for 2025. But the way we went into this year, we've seen the increase in gender-based violence. And like you said, especially this case in KZN, I just want to say, if you look at that, my heart is breaking. So the fact that he could commit such a heinous act and feel emboldened to admit it on social media speaks volumes about the pervasiveness and the culture of impunity around gender-based violence. It reflects us as a society where perpetrators believe they will face little or no consequences for their action. So in this case, the perpetrator sought to justify his actions by blaming his partner. And if you remember, many people then at the time even blamed her alongside, but she cheated. People made excuses. I mean, we saw persons on social media. So because he claimed she cheated, he went live. She was dead. She couldn't defend. He wanted to be remembered as the one who has been wrong, and he wanted it to be exonerated before taking his own life. So what is particularly heartbreaking is that she had no final words to defend herself until her family spoke out. So initially, the members of community sympathized with him, but only after the family spoke out about this abusive behavior, it became clear that the blame laid with him and not with her. So this case it's a reminder of the urgency to address the normalization. But I just want to go back quickly to what you said, to what I alluded to last week. We saw that on the 25th and 26th of December, South Africans spent 7.7 billion rand on alcohol abuse. And so for many this time of the year, we have a word. Last night I was speaking to others about it. We say Key December, we'd say Decembering. December has got a name for us as South Africans. And so this add pressures in household to be able to participate in the festivities, in the gifts, in the foods. It creates tensions in household. And add to this the additional alcohol consumption. Family disputes that has been there. We've even seen here in Cape Town, one cousin stabbing another cousin, a male cousin stabbing a female cousin to death. We've seen now another a person familiar to a pregnant woman stabbed her to death after drinking. And this is what I was saying, additional alcohol consumption spikes during the festive season, impairs judgment and increase the likelihood of violent behavior. So there's heightened emotion. So the whole year there's been tension. Add to this the alcohol, the festivities happen, pressure in households to conform to the gifting, so these three traditions are good, but they're also showing us there's a lot of things that is not. So unfortunately, women and children bear the brunt of these pressures and the festivities. So making the festive season one of the most dangerous times of the year. If you ask any shelter around Cape Town is full this time of the year because women are fleeing to shelters because of this.
Yeah. One of the, also coming out of KwaZulu-Natal, distressing stories is that of Ayabonga Mjilo, who allegedly was seen leaving with her manager, and later
Yes.
on her
Yes.
body was discovered in a shallow grave because he had dug a grave allegedly and buried her body there. Once again, that whole issue of the heinousness of the crime, but then you want to cover up the crime as well.
Yes, yes.
So defeating
Indeed,
the
we
ends
saw
of
that. I
justice.
think, yes, I mean, she disappeared, I think, on the 23rd or 24th, alongside the manager. Yesterday, a body was discovered in his backyard, you know. So the response to perpetrators of gender-based violence varies. So often we see it's inadequate. Some are apprehended and face criminal charges, so in that matter, but many evade accountability. And there's systemic failures in the justice system. Survivors may feel unsupported, unsafe. And I mean, we're only speaking about the femicides, about the murders. We're not speaking about the rapes. We're not speaking about the huge amounts of just violence perpetrated against children, women during this period, you know. So even when perpetrators are arrested, the process is so drawn out and convictions are not guaranteed. Our organization support women through the justice system. We have one matter that happened, something that happened in 2021. We're still at court for that matter. That perpetrator was arrested then. What do you think for the cases where there's no support for those families, for the women? We often see when we sit at court, others would come and say, my matter has been, will you be able to also join our matter to support us during the justice system, you know? So that's why we advocate for a survivor-centered approach to justice that prioritize the safety and access to legal representation. I always say, in South Africa, we're a country, if you have money, you have access to justice. And the enforcement, and then protection orders. We've seen our protection orders is not enforced. And I'm sure if we do some research into this, many of these women are issued with protection orders, but it's never enforced. So beyond the legal system, society also need to challenge the toxic norms that enable perpetrators. You know, and especially again, we saw this as a management, so it must be, we have to challenge toxic norms.
Yeah, and the other thing about this, Caroline, is so you and I are having this conversation about gender-based violence and specifically focusing on the murders that would take place. And if we look at murder in general in the country, which the former Minister of Police had described that it's almost like we are in a war zone and there's no war taking place in the country, but our numbers are that high, around 70 people that are murdered, 70 people murdered every day in South Africa. One of the reasons we are told is because of arguments, or how an argument could lead to somebody's death. But what is it about conflict resolution that we are not getting right? What is it about you and I, the individual rank and file, ordinary human beings that are not able to deal with how do you resolve conflicts without getting physical?
Yes. I often say our default is violence. If we do not agree with you, we lash out at you. So our default when we disagree, we go to violence. I mean, I live and work on the Cape Flats. The Cape Flats is so violent every day. 2 nights ago, we were sitting in our home and I said to my husband, is that firecrackers? Because it sounded so loud. And then I look at the community chat and right here, 2 doors away from me, there's shots fired. And I'm shocked, you know, but it's become the norm. It's become, and then we realized the next day it was young men, 16 and 17-year-olds running around with guns. So it's about access to guns. Our default is violence. And again, when children start fighting at a very young age, we have to encourage them to use words. We have to stop anything like that in its tracks. You know, that's why preventative work, and I can speak around this too for a long time. Preventative work, preventative. I realized, so for 35 years I've been working in the sector, but for me, for the last 2 years, we started doing the boys program, engaging men. Doing the work with the boys on the Cape Flats to me is more important because even by the time they get to 16, it's too late. Then they're running around with guns. Yes, you can try and reform them at that age, and then it's hard work. But if we do not start the preventative work, where children's default is not violence. When we have conflict, ask children to use words. Sit them down. How do you feel? We do not speak about feelings. We do not speak about. So if I'm aggrieved, if I'm angry, what else is there to do besides to hit, to lash out in a violent manner? Because these things adds up. Socialization.
Yeah.
Again, I want to say, yeah.
No, you can go ahead, Caroline. You're saying socialization.
Sorry. I'm saying with socialization again. How do we socialize our boy children? How do we socialize our girl children? The types of toys we buy, the words we use as parents, as grandparents, to our children, to our grandchildren. What is our default? And sometimes we think innocent spanking. No, but the Bible says, don't spare the rod. But what are we teaching them? If they're out of line, I love you. I hit you because I love you. So they grow up so girls expect it's okay because the man says he loves me. It's okay for him to hit me. My mother hit me because she loved me. My father gave me a hiding. So it's all these types of things that we need to revisit and look at. How do we change these socialization, social norms? Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's also about unlearning certain behavior,
Yes.
which is very important. But who does that work? For instance, in a company, you'd have a department that specifically has to do with wellness, and they're able to deal with that work also with the unlearning of certain behavior and so forth. But for once again, the ordinary man on the street, who helps them with that? Who helps them unlearn certain behavior?
And I want to say so for us here in the City of Cape Town, I know that the City of Cape Town runs programs for families, resilient families, women there's a program that's called Resilient Families, and they do that, but then they only do it for the troubled families. But it is about unlearning. How do we unlearn the words we use, the things we say? But then most NPOs does it. So the parent center would be able to do that. But NPOs are doing the work we know that the government should be doing. So how do we start even there? Basic things but I also want to encourage parents. There's things on YouTube. There's programs you can do to unlearn certain behavior. I am 60 years old, and I know a lot of my things I've probably only learned in the last 15 years, 20 years. I think before I turned 40, I had this big mind shift. And I had to learn to say, that's not okay to say to my children. That's not the way I want to do it, because I saw the violence in the relationships as someone working in the sector. I had to stop shouting. I had to stop just saying it's okay, and saying you. So one of the things I always laugh about, because my daughter would remind me, don't say they're naughty. You must say they're doing the naughty thing. So it's the behavior. It's not, and gentle parenting. And then we laugh as African women and we say, I don't do gentle parenting. But what is it that we are missing? Yeah?
What is it that we are missing? Actually, a thought that just came to my mind now was around corporal punishment.
Yes.
And the argument has always been that violence begets violence. And if in this country we've outlawed corporal punishment since the early 1990s, then why aren't we seeing the results of that?
Yes, definitely. I just want to pause there and remember Carol Bauer, a stalwart in the fight against corporal punishment. We are just having a service for Carol. Carol passed away, but Carol was with RAPCAN, one of the oldest activists in that fought hard against corporal punishment. And I think even that at the time, because Carol was a white woman, I couldn't understand it, why Carol was so passionate about it, because I grew up, and being spanked. And then people say, but my parents did it to me and I'm okay. And I want to ask and say, are you really okay? Are you sure? Is it not that the reason why our default is violence? Because of the beatings that was normalized? And so there's many things. Like you say, corporal punishment has been outlawed. many years later, you would have found teachers that are still were still doing this. But I know at this stage, you hardly hear of any
Yeah.
teachers that do that. But now there's the flip side of the coin. How do we teach rights and responsibilities that goes with rights? Because we see now teachers are burnt out. We see how teachers can't cope in the classroom. Because what do? It is almost as if we've taken something away, but there's nothing put in its place.
Yeah.
What replaces the corporal punishment? So what is it that we're going to put in place of that? Yeah.
Caroline, thank you so much for your time. Truly appreciate it. Caroline is the Executive Director of the Callas Foundation. Appreciate you making time for us, Caroline Peters there.